Hi, I'm Linda Jones and Happy New Year. I've just put together some short tutorials. The first one is an introduction to wire jewellery, and I always think it's nice to start a year with a new hobby. So I'm hoping that some of you out there thinking, what shall I do to be creative this year, will give it a go, because it's incredibly addictive and it's great fun. It's a great way of self-expression, just like all crafts. And it doesn't have to be jewellery. You can, enlarge your pieces and make them wall art. It can be accessories. It's just a way of using wire and a few simple tools to create structures and outlines and artistic works that just make you feel good. So the first one is just a beginner's guide to the tools and where to get started, because there's so much information out there, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers at all. I just wanted to provide a small or a short tutorial that gives you an idea of the outlay that you need, and then from there you can build on it. It's a sort of slow self-evolution. I hope you enjoy the simple tutorial to come, and it'll give you a sort of an insight into the basic requirements of what's needed to get you started with this wonderful craft. Thank you for watching. You need at least 3 tools to get you started, 3 or 4 in fact. The first one you need is round-nosed pliers. So you can see these are tapered cones on handles, and you can have that little bit of a spring in the plier, which makes it easier for your hands to hold and release the wire. And just make sure they're completely smooth and polished. And these are chain nose pliers, so they're tapered to the point. And again, always buy ones that haven't got any little sort of grooves inside, otherwise they will mark the wire when you're holding it. So chain nose pliers, absolutely important. And the reason they have tips is they can get into small areas. And then your cutters. Flush cutters are the best. You want to have cutters that go to a point. And obviously they also, the more expensive you spend on them, really, these are good ones, these are Tronics, because ergonomically the cutting end is so good. It flush cuts without squishing the wire and leaving 2 pointy ends, which often happens with a cheaper tool. So buy the best you can afford. Now, I also recommend getting flat nose pliers, because you can grip more surface wire. So you've these 2 tools, the chain nose and the flat nose, do the same thing, but you can see again, highly polished inside is essential for jewelry making. Otherwise, any grips or any serrations in that inner bit will create lots of sort of scuffs and marks on your pieces. So those are the essential 4 tools to get you started. And then wire, of course. Now this is 0.8 of a millimeter, which is 20 gauge, 0.8 of a millimeter, and it comes in spools like this. You can buy it in 6-meter packs, and you can also buy it wholesale. But the end, once you've unwrapped it, is always a little bit tune up, and you sort of feel you have to cut it off. But I don't. If you don't want to waste anything when you're practicing and you're starting out, just grip the very, very end, put it on your round nose pliers and roll it around the plier, and just make sure the next bit goes underneath the first round, and then keep rolling that wire on one of those tapered cones on the same spot. Keep it nice and parallel, the wire parallel to the pliers, and then just keep rolling and rolling and rolling to create a sort of little bit of a coil, an even sized coil, and then put your cutters on the inside of that coil to cut it off the spool, and that will have got rid of all the raggedy edges. And then you can see if you cut from the cut end of that coil up to the next ring of the coil, you will get a perfect little circle, or what we call a jump ring, which is the connecting little links that you will use in jewellery making. So nothing is wasted then. They won't be the perfect ones, but they will be useful, especially when you're starting out and you're playing. You just don't want to waste anything because everything's costing you money, and you just want to, you know, practice and experiment as much as you can. I also use 0.4 for binding, but the main one to buy at this point is 0.8 of a millimeter. So you can't have enough of that. And then, of course, beads. Well, I don't think I have to say too much about beads because we all know what they are. Just start collecting them from broken pieces of jewellery, from charity shops, from jewellery that you have that you don't wear anymore, as well as sort of buying them. You can just tell all your friends, I'm going to start making jewellery. If you have any bits you want to throw out, throw them out to me, and then just take them apart and get yourself a little box like this. You can buy these sort of boxes in any DIY shop, you know, used for nails and, you know, little bolts and springs and whatever. And then put them into colour palettes, because that way, when you start working and making pieces, you'll find you don't have to look and get inspiration. You can just say, I'm going to make a red piece, and you've got all your tones of pinks and oranges and, you know, russet reds and all that together. So it just helps you sort of come up with an idea, because you can just work with colour to start with, not so much design. It's all about techniques and then with colour. Now, this is a coiling gizmo, and I do also recommend it as one of the extra tools that you can buy. And you can see it's a bracket with these 4 holes on it, and each of the hole has a handle. This bit goes between a table, so you want to sort of clamp it, screw clamp it onto your table, and then once the bracket is on the tabletop, you can take one of the handles, whatever size you want, whatever diameter, circle or coil you want to create, and all the instructions on the coiling gizmo are there. I don't need to really explain it, but I will have tutorials on it in the future. But what you gain by doing this is creating coils, and I showed you on my round nose pliers how you could do that, but you will get really very precise coiling lengths with this, which you can cut down to shorter lengths and then thread. You see, it's like a bead. So you put a bead, a coil, a bead, and then make links on each side, and then you link them with the jump rings, and you can make instant necklaces, bracelets, earrings using these coil techniques, not just for jump rings. And also the coiling gizmo is about making wire beads, but we'll come to that for another occasion. I always think step by step. You see here, you can see the smaller colour wire coils that match the beads. These are just, you know, experiments to get you sort of doing repetitive things so that give you a feel for your tools. And here, smaller coils with little seed beads. So you really can use whatever you've got to hand to practice, and through the repetition of it, you'll find that, you know, you'll get used to using the tools without having to think about it. And clasps, I mean, it's great if you can make your own clasps, because then you can make clasps that match the wire you're working with, because obviously the clasps you buy in the shop will only be a certain silver or a certain gold or a certain, you know, metallic look. And you can put beads on your clasp to match and unify the beads in your necklace. But this simple fish hook clasp, it's so easy to create, and I have got tutorials on all of these basic essential techniques. So do look into my other tutorials to find all the resources you need just to get you started. Now, what I do recommend learning is creating spirals. Spirals are something that, I don't know, they just lend themselves to wire. So I'm going to show you how I create a cage for a bead. I'm just cutting off a length here. This is again 0.8 millimeter, and it's about 8 inches, 7 or 8 inches. And I'm going to make a circle using my round nose pliers at one end. But you'll see, when you start making jewellery, you often get just a little sort of straight end. So to make this very circular, I cut off that little end again, and then put it back into my tool, my round nose pliers, and then bend it round again, and then you get a much more perfect circle. So again, grip the end as much as you can, squeeze it and hold it in your pliers, and then bring it around so that it creates a complete circle. And then again, if you think, I want to just make that even more circular, just cut off that tiny little end piece, place the tool right into the round nose pliers, and then close it again, and you'll find it becomes much rounder. So now grip that circle, leaving a little bit exposed, sitting outside the flat nose pliers, and keeping your hands and fingers really close to the tool. Push the wire around the outside of itself. So it's going to go in concentric circles, just keeping it close. You don't want a gap. Just push it so that it's close. And your fingers are a tool. So remember, your fingers are just as important as your pliers. Keep them as close to the tool because they're tools too. And it's just that the pliers can do a better job. So keep curling and curling and curling the wire, working in tiny little movements, and make sure that one of your spirals is curling in one direction and the other spiral in the opposite direction. So, and then you actually want to try and make them the approximate same size. So as I'm coming in, each spiral coming in towards each other, I'm just going to keep checking. If one's getting bigger, I turn it round and work on the other one. And here we are, we're just coming in really nice and close, and we want those two spirals to sit one on top of the other. So it's like a large spirally S. Now these also make lovely chain link units, so you could link from one inner circle to another inner circle. So if you make 7 of those and make big jump rings, you can create a lovely bracelet, or you can create a necklace, or you can use them for earring units, all sorts of lovely things. So anyway, we're going back to the cage. So for the cage, you want to find the center, and then you just push one spiral on top of the other. You bend it and you just push it down so that one sits directly on top of the other. It's basically a squish. And then pick out, with the tips of your chain nose pliers, just pick out those center circles that you created right at the beginning. Just take the tip of them, not the cut end, so you get a whole circle sitting proud of the other spirals. And then using 2 pliers, start pulling apart. So pull those like a spring. You really want to pull it apart. Now use your fingers, because you want to separate gaps between the spirals. So you've got a sort of bit of a zebedee type feel to it. And that center bit is the widest part of the cage. That's where you're going to pop your chosen bead. So if you get some beads, find one that will fit within that space. I've just got an oval bead here, the first one I could put my hands on. I mean, I could use a much bigger bead, in fact, because it's leaving a space. And now just pull all the rings of that cage towards each other. So the 2 halves are connected again, and the bead can live inside that cage. And then what you can do is, if you're making this for earrings, or you can just push down. So just push back down one of those little rings, the base of the spiral, so that it makes a base for the cage. And then just spend a bit of time, use your fingers, spend a bit of time moving those the wire around so that it work hardens, and also so that you get more of an even spacing to the outer cage. And as I say, just play with it for a bit. until you're happy with it, and that's what's called a wire cage for a bead. So using more wire, you can make this bigger. Using less, you can make this smaller, and you can use these for earrings, necklaces. They're so decorative, and you can hang them off a chain or a charm bracelet. Whatever you want to do with it, it's just a very decorative piece. But if you practice those, you'll get the idea of making spirals. You'll get instant jewellery satisfaction, basically. And you can even get your kids and your grandkids to have a go. So that's the basic cage, and I hope you enjoy just experimenting with some of these very, very simple things. And please go to my other tutorials for more inspiration. Thank you for watching.